acting chair. Well, thank you. I'm the acting chair of this meeting. So I'm calling the meeting to order and review the agenda. Any problems with the agenda?
Nope.
I didn't consult you, Melissa, but you're on two of the things. And minutes for the meeting of May 20th. Any problems with the minutes from May 20th? I didn't have any. I thought they were good.
Melissa,
Yeah.
I would suggest under item 1 that you make a distinction between board members who are present and guests who are present.
Talking to
Second
Sonia.
On the minutes from May 20th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think that should be done before we approve the minutes or approve it on condition that that be changed?
On condition.
Okay.
And
Okay.
there's a spelling error there too.
All right. And that is? I don't have them in front of me right now, but
I'll let you search it out.
okay.
That's cruel, John. That's cruel.
Well, it's also embarrassing.
Okay. Well, that adds a little interest to us finding it. Okay, do I have a motion that the minutes be approved with the two changes recommended by John?
So moved?
Second? I'll second. Melissa?
Aye.
Steve? Yeah, aye. Sonia?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Okay.
They're good minutes, Melissa. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't catch the mistakes, but I thought they were great too.
Thank you, Sonia.
That would be me who does the minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Melissa, you're on for reporting our success or lack thereof of requesting funding from the select board.
I think we landed in between success and lack thereof, but I think we're gonna get the job done. It looks like we won't have any discretionary funds, but we were given access to the TA's consultancy budget, which is up to $20,000. And all we have to do is send him a proposal for what we want, why we want it, and he can just sign off on it without the select board. As for signs and fences, that will have to go through the select board. I think mainly because they're probably going to be used through funds with the DPW, or if it's on private property, I think we'd have to work that out with the board because there are some legal ramifications for doing that on private property with town funds, which makes sense. So I think, at least we have access to the consultancy budget and away.
Great. Any comments?
Just a question, Melissa, did the subject of surveying come up?
Like where to get the funds for surveying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's going to be through the consultancy budget. So
Okay, fair enough.
yeah.
So both legal and surveying go through the consultancy budget.
Yes. Or
Great.
the legal might be separate. I'm not sure if that goes through consultancy. We know what the procedure is.
Okay, and go to the TA and find out, right?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
No other comments? Time to move on to item number 5. This may be a fast meeting. And that's the review of Melissa's proposed list of questions for town council.
I can share my screen if that's helpful.
Okay.
Everybody see that?
Yes, well, I can.
Okay. Yeah, so in the interest of time, you know, I'm not going to go through it all, but I basically put down on paper everything that we discussed at our last meeting. And we can discuss what we want to change, take out, put in. So I guess I can start in my mind. I thought that purchasing the lot was the easiest way to do this. If we can get a clear guidance from town council on whether or not we can release the town from liability of shellfish fishermen using the boathouse, then that might be the easiest way, because becoming a butter means that you have access to the road as well, in my mind, but we can certainly confirm that. And then I also wanted to ask, who do we actually have to ask permission from and give fair compensation to in order to gain access to the private road, if it's private? And I think if the private homeowners abutting it to the north agree to give us access, then we don't need the Audubon, since the latest subdivision plan that lays out the road doesn't include them. Then we have a way here, and if the private homeowners don't agree, and maybe the Audubon does agree, then we have a way on number 5 here. So, and then number 4 would just be confirming what we already have.
I had a thought, Melissa. I think at our last meeting, I had said I was in favor of the purchase. But I've come up with a different opinion this go around. And the problem is the boathouse. And what I'm concerned about is if we purchase the lot, then we own the boathouse, and the Conservation Commission has already objected to that once. And I think the concern is that sets a precedent, because if this piece of town land has a boathouse on it, why, there's nothing to stop this at many other properties. That may or may not be a good thing, but it does raise the issue. So I think we either have to make that decision. Do we do this as an easement or as a purchase? Or focus this letter as a mean to help us make that decision?
I think the idea of the letter was to help us make that decision. I think that's why we covered all these topics in the letter, because I feel like as a committee, we don't necessarily know what the best option is, and we're looking for advice on that. I think in the previous meeting we mentioned as well, was there a way to buy the land without it going into conservation, because it was conservation that brought up issues with owning the boathouse. So if, I don't know how these things work, but if it were purchased by the town but not put in conservation, I don't know how that works, but would that eliminate that problem?
Yes, if I may speak.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Am I on? This is, I think the question is whether to, again, we were happy to, the Open Space Committee is happy to use our CPC monies to do this. The reason we were looking at an access path is because the aggers agreed to it, but you don't have the issue with the liability. And, so that something would be easy to do. If the town is willing to take the liability, the Conscom won't do it. It doesn't make any sense. It's not going to be in conservation. If the town is willing to take the liability, the aggers have been interested in selling the property. And so that works for us, but at the town level, somebody'd have to agree to that. And I'm not sure whether they would accept the liability or not. But I think if we have the access road, and I think if there's an access on, through the dune there, that would accomplish what you guys are looking to accomplish. We can in perpetuity keep an access path and access to Logie Bay there
Blackfish Creek.
and Blackfish Creek.
May I put a question to Bruce? Leave aside the conservation issue. We do this without conservation. It still creates, will it create a precedent?
I don't think the town, what I'm saying is we're happy to do it either way. Somebody the administrator, the board of selectmen have to make a decision that they're willing to do it. If they are, we're happy with it. The Aggers are happy with it, and we can go forward. I think that there will be concerns, frankly, and I think you can accomplish the same thing by buying the access. But
And
as far as open space is concerned, if the town select board is willing to do it, we're happy to put the money up for it.
So that would leave Aggers with the liability responsibility. If we just,
Or if they sold it to the shell fishermen who are using it or whatever, there's going to be some liability that's there. But it seems to me if it's an access path, that's pretty safe, I think. No.
I would mention too that there are town lots that have structures that are used privately. One of which would be Max on the pier. And I think it's not I don't know how common it is, but I don't think it's unprecedented.
should we put an extra phrase someplace in this letter that points out our concern about the liability for the boathouse for the legal team to look at and kind of give the same kind of, have the same kind of discussion we're having and then come up with a perhaps more learned answer?
So
Steve, I see, sorry, I'm jumping in on someone.
Do you have it already in there, Melissa?
I asked if we can purchase an easement for the shell fishermen to release the town of liability.
Oh, I see, okay.
If you'd like to rephrase it, I can do that.
No, I guess that's okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because I did read, I don't know how accurate it is, but I did read that you can release the liability of the landowner from anything happening on the access point or whatever access you're granting if you say in the easement that it's releasing liability. But we would confirm that with town council.
Melissa, may I suggest expanding the phrase if the road is private, by starting that off by saying if the road is private, we are trying to decide the best strategy for the town to ensure citizen access, either by purchase or by an easement. And the following questions relate to that point.
Melissa, that's
You can
amazing.
clean that up somehow. It's maybe a bit awkward, but I think it's good to introduce points 2 through 8 as part of our decision process.
Okay, I agree.
As an aside, I went out there yesterday or the day before and took a close look at, John, you had mentioned that you thought Herring Point Road was where those 2 driveways go up. So I looked closely at that, and yes, it does appear that it extends beyond that second driveway. It's, if you look closely at the grading of the property beyond that, all the way up to the path that we use, it does appear that it was originally the road. So I think what we're driving on is described accurately by our maps and our overlays. It's not Herring Point Road.
Yeah, that's great. Low-cost surveying.
Yep. If you take a close look at it, it's pretty obvious. You also, at the beginning of what I consider Herring Point Road, you see that there's a, what's it called, where a pipe goes under the road. Anyway, there are concrete things on two sides of what will presume to be the road to let water flow under. And if you continue up that line, you hit the two driveways and then you hit a pile of trees. But if you go around those trees and look, it does look like the grading continued. For what that's worth. And we did talk about, after we give this to the legal beagles, that we would request a meeting, joint meeting with them. In fact, I think you said it at the end, didn't you? Melissa?
Would prefer
Yeah.
to discuss this in a virtual meeting if possible. I don't think that'll be a hard ask.
No. But it would be kind of nice to have them reflect their thinking, report it back to us, and maybe we can still have some input.
I have been told or read that as of June 15th, we will go back to the usual schedule of face-to-face meetings for board meetings.
So we should leave out the word virtual.
Well, but
That could cut costs for the.
I would, exactly. Our town council in Boston, and I saw the select board tomorrow night is having some sort of discussion around this issue. Ryan is leading that discussion. So I thought I would put the question to him that whatever happened about meeting structure, if we had someone from the outside coming to participate with us, they could be on Zoom, and that would at least save the cost of travel time from Boston to Wellfleet and back. And yet we could still have the dialogue with them through some sort of a Zoom setup. So
Would that have to be a public meeting?
yes, it would be a public meeting.
Okay.
Melissa's
I
asking.
don't
it has
quite
to
know
be-
how it would be arranged, but I assume it can be arranged. That is, if there would be, we would be having a public meeting, say downstairs in town hall, and there would be a screen, and on the screen would be the lawyer in Boston.
Mhm.
And that screen would be set up so the board and people attending the meeting could follow the discussion. I think it's feasible.
I think it could be a kind gesture too, if it's a public meeting already, maybe invite the people who are involved to make this a collaborative effort. If anybody who's not on this board has questions they want asked, I don't know how Board of Selectmen feel about using some town council time to answer those questions as well, but I think anything they want to ask, we want to ask too. So that could be good for everybody involved to be there. I don't know.
As long as it's moderated carefully.
Yeah.
So I guess the next step would be to send, to vote to send this revised letter to the acting town administrator. And there's a question of how to proceed. So somebody's got to get an estimate of the cost. And I assume that would be the acting town administrator, and then we go before the select board. Or maybe the acting town administrator could sign off himself.
We, a couple of 3 meetings ago, we got a short procedure from the select board on how to submit things to town council. I don't have my fingertips on it right now, but that was pretty clear. I think it did it. Does anybody remember that?
Yeah, I've got it in front of me right now. Do you want me to read out the procedures?
Yeah, sure.
Just a paragraph.
Yes, please.
Yep. So in order to better conserve the town's limited financial resources and enable the Board of Selectmen to remain informed, and furthermore to improve the expediency and quality of our system of obtaining legal advice from town council, the Board of Selectmen requests the following procedure be observed by all department heads and chairs of appointed town boards and commissions. Requests for legal opinions from town council shall be submitted to the town administrator in writing. If approved, requests will be forwarded to town council. Town council will likewise respond with a written legal opinion whenever possible. In the event that an emergent situation exists, a verbal request and response followed by a written request and response will be acceptable.
That almost
Yeah, that
blocks
leaves
out
out-
of the meeting, doesn't it?
that leaves out the process of, I assume that the town administrator would get the cost estimate and then react to that.
I think so. Ryan mentioned that he recommended we do a meeting in person or virtual. So I don't think we're going to meet resistance with that request.
Yeah, from some of the communication we received from Ryan, it seems like the town does want to solve this problem. I believe there was an email as well where they offered assistance from a town staff member. Does anyone recall that? It was probably a few weeks ago where he said, that the town's basically willing to do whichever option works out better. So I think the town is looking for the same kind of advice. And he also suggested that there's a staff member that could potentially help us with the process.
Yeah, I think our committee is in an advisory position, and once we have a plan, then a staff member can help us jump through hoops.
Got it. So far, it seems like we've got the written questions in place. All we need to do is then send that on to town administrator. Is that correct?
Sounds like it.
Well, let's see, I think we probably ought to have a vote on that.
You're going to move that we do it, John?
Does anyone?
I would say, let's see, to the town administrator, the RPAC committee, having discussed this issue, these legal issues at length, request that the town administrator approve are placing these questions before town council. That's also a bit cumbersome. I'm sure that can be improved.
That'll work. Is that a motion, John?
Yeah, that's a motion.
Any second?
Second.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, any discussion? I think we've kind of hashed it over a bit. So shall we vote on it? Melissa?
Aye.
Aye. Tanya?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Okay, the motion is passed unanimously. So thank you, Melissa, for putting that all together. I assume this was the third thing you sent out, this letter?
Let me just interrupt with one other thought. When we send this letter to the town administrator, we should probably also copy the Aggers. So they, just for the point of view that they know what steps we're taking.
Do we copy in the select board as well? So they know what we're doing?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, never hurts. And I will send an email. I'd already thought of this. I'll send an email to Ryan about this idea of having, if we're meeting as, real people in town hall, that we could have the town council on a Zoom meeting. That would be perfectly acceptable and would save costs.
I've never been at a real meeting. Do they record them? Or is it just the secretary's minutes?
Actually, I think the committee has some choice over that.
Do you know, Mia?
It depends on whether, right now, there's no requirement for anyone to be recorded. The select board's going to consider instituting that as a requirement, but right now, no, if you go, but the only reason these have to be recorded is for open meeting law, because obviously you're not meeting in person, so the public doesn't have access, so you have to see the recording. But once you go back to meeting in person, right now, you're not required to be recorded.
Okay. Because I kind of like those recordings. They're handy to go back to.
Yeah, I'm for myself as well, like keeping track of minutes. I'll go through the meeting a couple times. I suppose, moving forward, I could do that with a recording, audio recording, but it does help keep track of everything we talked about.
I would let the select board know if you're interested in continuing that, because they're going to determine whether to establish it for the town, so.
Yeah, thank you. Are we ready to move on? Hearing nothing against that. Sonia, you're on to tell us if there's anything happening with the joint meeting with the Shellfish Advisory.
I've sent out a couple emails, no response just yet. I'm sure people are just busy. I've called as well. And, we only had a meeting a couple weeks ago. I'm assuming it just might take a little more time to get through and make a plan. So,
Okay.
But nothing as of yet. I'll keep trying.
Okay.
Did you suggest an agenda? What do we want?
I sent an email roughly covering what we were discussing. Just in terms of prioritizing landings and getting feedback from the community, and so
Okay.
I sent an email a couple times.
I saw the May 20th SAB meeting, and they mentioned that they need to schedule it, but they prioritized another meeting over scheduling us. So I think it'll.
Okay, so it's on their radar.
It is. It sounds
Okay,
maybe she
that's okay.
sent it out to the group and then just didn't respond because they have to collaboratively create a date. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm sure it'll happen. We just need to figure out dates and stuff like that. So.
Okay. Thank you, Sonia. Any other business that we have to consider? Our last meeting, we had a lot of other things tailed on. They're in the minutes that we want to start discussing sometime out there in the future. So I don't think we have to talk about things that we want to handle in the future, but is there any other business for us?
What should we talk about next meeting?
Yeah, where we go from here, right? It's the boathouse has been kind of swallowing every meeting.
It looks
Can I
like
try
Nancy
one
has
thing?
her hand up. You
Pond
ready?
access. Do we want to start looking into pond access?
Oh, should we revisit what we've done at Way 100?
Nancy?
Hi, this doesn't have to do with what you're talking about now, but in terms of other business, I just wanted to let you guys know that I had Jordan update our landings map with the condos. Thank you, Sonia. And I'll have her add that on Thursday when she's back with us to the overall landings list. And I'll resend, it's up no, the complete one is not online. We will resend to all of you guys the now final, which might not be final, but we'll send you the updated landings list with the map that includes the condos so that you'll have that for your meeting with Shellfish Advisory. I just wanted to give you that update. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
On the topic of Way 100, I think we should continue on with that. We didn't really resolve what was going on there. And, it was on my list of important landings, so I'd like to continue looking into that. And that's going to be also a discussion with the Aggers and with Lori Rudifer, right? Because it's
Their property.
a situation.
Actually over their property.
What's that?
It's actually over their property.
It's over their property. So, you know, it really is up to them how we're going to move forward on this.
And Field Point too. We had talked about Field Point.
Field Point. Yep. I've sent out an email kind of asking questions out to the state, the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife, just kind of reaching out and seeing if I get a response. I may not. So I might try to make a phone call next. But I was also kind of waiting to see what happens with Omaha, you know, because I feel like, you know, I want to know that that access point is secure before I really look into any other issues in that area. And I just didn't want to kind of shake the can of worms too much in,
Yeah, right.
Agreed.
in that corner of the world, you know, until we know we've at least got Omaha.
Whereabouts is that then? The Omaha
Field,
Road.
Fox Island.
Pardon?
Fox Island, the King Philip
No,
Road.
no, I meant the Omaha Road. Where is that process? Is it before the select board?
So they're in negotiations. Nancy had updated us the last meeting that basically town staff are working on coming to an agreement.
Okay, good. Nothing's happened since then.
We could put on our, or at least my to-do list, is ponds, but also I think general citizen access to the harbor. That is, for folk who aren't shellfishermen, are there issues, concerns? And I'm remembering that about 10 years or so, that people were being stopped from walking along beaches. I haven't heard anything recently. So maybe the homework assignment for all of us is just to keep our ears open and see how things are, you know, get our own judgment as to how things are working. But it would be a useful subject for discussion down the road.
I have a question. Has anyone heard, a friend of mine told me that they had seen private property signs up at Bound Brook. Speaking of bay beaches that people access. I don't know if anyone's been down there recently, but I heard something about signage going up, kind of trying to deter people from getting to Bound Brook Beach.
Where were the
What's that?
signs?
I hadn't seen myself, but someone had just raised a concern. I actually like to just drive down there and have a look and see what they are referring to, but you know.
I was there the other day. I thought it was parkland, so I didn't think
Mhm.
that you could close off access, but
So nothing blocked off that you noticed.
not that I could see.
Mhm. Okay.
But maybe there's somewhere I didn't see. But I love Bound Brook, so I would,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a great spot, and I would
yeah.
not want to see that, you know, change. Absolutely.
And then the other thing Nancy had mentioned was securing the right to drive on the beach.
Yep.
That's worth our time. We don't necessarily need to get the SAB to confirm that.
Absolutely. Great.
Okay, well, we've hammered out the some items for the next meeting.
Do I see?
So Sonia, could you
Yep, Nancy?
try to make your minutes just list the subject, the topics that we just talked about?
Uh-huh.
Whether we decide to dig into them at the next meeting or not, we'll probably pass by several of them. It's just that they ought to be on our minds.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nancy?
And I was just going to let you know that town staff have not met yet with Omaha, and I'm wondering whether it will happen before town meeting. I'm not sure.
Okay,
But I did speak with Ann Sterling and told her, you know, where we were and what was going on. And I believe when we have the meeting over there with town staff to look at Omaha, we will, she will join us. So that will be good. And hopefully we'll be able to, you know, make
thank you, Nancy.
progress.
Bill?
Yeah, I just wanted to, it occurred to me while I was on the phone, is that we have our annual meeting coming up on Saturday, the 26th of June at 4 o'clock at the Boathouse, which you're all familiar with. A representative from your committee is absolutely invited to come. I mean, I've worked with Melissa, so if Melissa's available, just to sort of let people know what you're doing and, not scare them, I guess, build some bridges. Hey, and you'll find out a little bit about the culture of the organization and, how we have mostly normal people, but a few strange people as well. And, so anyway, we'll probably have 35 or 40 residents and, it'd be certainly welcome if one of you would like to come and
What time is this, Bill?
It's at 4 o'clock at the Boathouse on Saturday, the 26th of June.
That's our town meeting day. So it'd be great if we were done by 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, our meeting will go for at least an hour. So, you don't have to be there at 4. You could probably come at 4:30 or 5 and still get an update.
Well, thank you for the invitation. That's great.
Sure.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, and just let me know. I mean, it's okay if nobody comes, but if you are coming, just send me an email so I can know you're going to be there.
Okay,
I'd be happy to come.
Great.
Oh,
That would
great.
be terrific. Thanks, Melissa.
okay. Anything else before we adjourn? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
Melissa?
Aye.
Aye. And Sonia?
Aye.
And John?
Aye. I think we just set a record.
I was just thinking that, probably the shortest meeting this committee's ever had. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Right. Take care, guys.
Yes, bye.